Are you too hard on yourself, and are you your own worst enemy? International speaker and author Dr. Dain Heer says it's time to start being your own BFF.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
About 12 months, eh?
I know, approximately, yes.
It's good. It's cool.
I figure if I get back every 12 months, I'm doing pretty good.
This is good, absolutely. So you reckon that we're all too hard on ourselves?
Yeah, well, you know, most of us go around with this sort of negative self-talk in our heads. It's like we're judging ourselves for what we're doing now.
Like what? Give me an example of something that might be quite common that people do.
Well, even as you're driving to work, you're thinking, oh my gosh, you know what, I'm not making enough money. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. You'll take judgment from anywhere and sort of pile it in your head, and we tend to walk around like, without any sense of peace, without any sense of ease, any sense of joy.
Okay, so it's the negative self-talk. We often don't even know we're doing it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what's got to stop. You've got to learn to love yourself.
Yeah, and learn to realize that when you're judging you, just stop. See a hand in front of you, see a stop sign, whatever it takes, and stop. Because most people don't realize that they're walking around judging themselves most of the time.
You used the example of you driving to work, you might be thinking, I'm not making enough money.
Yeah.
But maybe that is a real issue in your world. What,
yes.
What do you replace it with?
You start to replace it with, okay, what would it take to make more money? And how does it get any better than this? See, when you ask that one question, how does it get any better than this? When something good happens or when something bad happens. In a bad situation, it gets better. In a good situation, it gets better.
Yeah.
What most of us do is we think we're stuck with the life we're living rather than being able to create the life we'd like to have.
Well, you want us to make changes, eh?
I would like us to, yeah. I'd like to see a happy planet.
But it's where to start.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I'm saying when you realize you're judging you, when you realize you're coming down hard on you for something, just stop. And that's the first place. And then the next thing is ask a question.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to change this? What else is possible here? How does it get any better than this? And what would happen if I stopped judging me here?
Because so often you will forgive others for things that you will not forgive yourself.
Absolutely.
For, eh?
I know, it's interesting. It's like we
just
value...
human condition.
Well, I think what it is we value our relationship with other people more than we value the relationship with ourselves. And the difficulty is that's what we pass on to our kids. That's what we learn from our parents. What I'm saying is, what if valuing you is actually the greatest gift you can give you, but also the people that are around you? What if you could teach your kids to value themselves? Would our epidemic that we have of self-judgment, bullying, all those sorts of things, would they be able to exist in a world in which we all valued ourselves, cared for ourselves, and cared for each other?
You talk to people about this sort of stuff all the time. When you see people make these changes and they do start to value themselves and stop the judging, what do you see? What changes do you see?
Oh, I see people actually get happy. They actually, rather than having to work at it and do some major thing like, oh, I'm going on a vacation so now I can be happy 1 or 2 weeks out of the year, they actually start to wake up happy with a sense of peace. I mean, if you can imagine what it's like hanging out with a friend who truly cares about you, who has no judgment of you, who you know has your back, that becomes sort of like this safe oasis. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what else is going on in your life, what else is stressing you out. There's a place where it's like, oh, it's okay to be. Well, what if we could be that for ourselves? That's really what this is about, and that's what people start to happen, what starts to happen for them, what they start to have for themselves as they start to actually embrace these tools.
Okay, so we better find out how to do it. You've got some top tips.
Right.
All right, we'll kick it. Number 1, stop judging you and start having the allowance for everything you choose and have chosen.
Yes. Instead of thinking, wow, I'm wrong for choosing this, I'm wrong for choosing this, what if you realize that you've actually done the best job you could with the tools you had available? And we all have. And if we look from that place, instead of, wow, I did this wrong and I did this wrong and I did this wrong, what else would be possible?
So it's seeing that glass half full.
Yeah.
A bit more than...
Yeah, and actually having the tools to create it, because it's one thing to know the glass you should be seeing it half full. It's another to actually get there.
Oh, totally.
And that's what this is really about, is getting there.
You also talk about being grateful for what you have.
Yes.
Today.
Yeah, because you can either have gratitude or judgment. They don't coexist. They don't fit into the same space. And so what happens is, if you'll actually just write down on a piece of paper, what am I grateful for me today? And it may be one thing, it may be 10 things, but every single day when you get up, that's the first place to start.
Like what, a roof over my head?
A roof over my head. I'm grateful that I'm a good mom. I'm grateful that I care about my friends. I'm grateful that I was nice enough to tip the driver the other day. It changed its whole world, you know, whatever it is. Anything that you can find to be grateful for. And you make this list, and what it does, it combats the judgments that have been building up your entire life.
Okay. Start living your life from the joy of it. Now, you talk about writing things down that make you happy.
Yes.
But what if what you're doing that makes you happy then makes you unhappy? And my example is, I love white chocolate. I eat a big bar of it, and I'm really happy. And when I finish it, I'm so bloody unhappy because I've done that.
Now, here's the interesting thing. If your white chocolate is your only indulgence for you, you will eat the entire bar because you're like, I'm going to do this for me. When you actually have other sources of what make you happy, you can have a piece, you can have maybe a quarter of a bar, and it brings you just as much joy because that's not the only source
Geez,
of it.
I have to work on that.
Right?
Yeah, okay, good.
But I like the white chocolate idea. That is definitely on my list personally.
You've got to be vulnerable and totally honest with yourself. Like, in what sort of a way?
Well, the thing is, what most of us do, see, vulnerability is, here I am, I've got some cool stuff, I've got some yucky stuff, but it's all me. Here I am, warts and all. What most of us are doing is we're in such judgment of so many parts of us, like, oh, I'm not smart enough, I'm not bright enough, I don't create enough. So what we try to do is we try to put up this facade of perfection even to ourselves. Vulnerability with you is, wow, okay, I've got great stuff, I've got some yucky stuff, and that's the place where you can start changing the yucky stuff you want to change, not from the place of trying to prove that you're perfect to you.
Do you run the risk of being a little self-centered if you start, you know, loving you too much?
You know, the interesting thing, isn't that interesting that you could love yourself too much?
I don't know.
But that's the idea that's out there, and it's a great question, but what happens is, actually what happens, as you start to care for yourself more, you actually become less self-centered. When you start to have that sense of peace within yourself, I mean, think of a friend that you have that doesn't judge you, that cares for you. Are they self-centered, or are they just there for you?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is you become less self-centered. You actually become more present for you and even more present for other people.
Cool. So everything we've talked about plus a whole bunch more is in being you, changing the world.
Yes.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us again, and
Thanks,
we'll see you
Jeanette.
hopefully in another 12 months.
I look forward to it.
If not earlier. Fab. Thank you, Dain. Coming up, he's been described as the rock star of Kiwi comedy. Gish is here to perform next. Thank you.